Hi, Jonathan, Master Kia Technician at Jim Shorkey Auto Group. Today we're going to talk about brake pads and rotors. Actually, I have some bad brake pads here. What happens over time, and especially in Pennsylvania, anywhere where we get a lot of snow, salt, corrosion on the roads, what happens is the metal corrodes on the rotors, your brake pads start chipping away. These brake pads, unfortunately, don't have a lot of life left, but they would have been prolonged if the rotors would have been properly maintained. If we can get a shot of this here, there's still a lot of meat on the bones in the middle. What happens is the corrosion of the rotors start to chip away the edges of the brake pad and to start to deteriorate the material itself. I will show you a brand new brake pad. This is what a brand new brake pad would look like sideways. You can see the difference. You can see the lines and the cut marks in there. That is because of the rotors starting to rust and get ridges on the rotors. And they start to cut into the pads themselves and deteriorating the material on the pads. Okay, right here we have an example of a brand new rotor. Smooth. You can see the surface on here. And this is an example of a not so good rotor. You have rust all along the face of it, on the edge. This is what we were talking about earlier, about depleting your brake pads. I'll spin it around, you can see how bad this side is. Okay, now that we got all that out of the way, you can actually just resurface rotors if your brake pads still have a lot of life left on them, and it'll help your brake pads just by resurfacing the rotor, putting a good clean surface on your brake pads. That's basically all you're doing. So whenever you're stopping, you got a nice surface and nothing's chipping away. But whenever you get your brakes done, it is very important to always get your rotors replaced or at least resurfaced. Because you don't want to just put brand new brake pads that you put on and you spend a lot of money on this, because you're just going to be defeating the purpose of putting new pads on. So what we can do here is we have an off-the-car lathe, which means you take the rotors off the vehicle, you place it on a lathe. We have bits that will shave off at least 1/1000th of an inch at a time, which is very minimal. Some brake rotors will have a little bit more trouble because the grooves are a little bit deeper, but there is a discard spec that we always have on hand that we notice you will be able to go up into the point, and then the rotor is pretty much junk after it's been cut down to a minimal level. So what we can do is try to save the rotors. We always try to save the rotors. Sometimes they're too far gone and you need to replace the rotors. But I'll put this on the brake lathe and I will show you another brake lathe that we use. It's an on-the-car brake lathe, and we'll get to that in a second. Okay, with some time lapse, obviously, here's the finished product. That rusty, deteriorated rotor has a nice surface for your brake pads. Turn around, you have a little bit of rust around the edge, but the actual brake pad doesn't ride right here. It rides about right in between here. So you can see the nice surface that the brake lathe did. So you have a nice, almost brand new rotor. You can see very comparable, and that's just with resurfacing your rotors. Great thing to do, a must do whenever replacing brake pads or replacement of the rotors when replacing brake pads. We're back in a different location. We showed you the off-the-car lathe. This is the on-the-car brake lathe. This actually will cut your rotor to your hub, to the rotation of the hub actually. So this is a really good idea. I like this. This is one of my favorites. Nice quick cut on the rotor. New brake pads. Slap them on there, nice new surface. Awesome stuff. I'll show you how to get started. Start up the machine. We'll take about 1/1000th of an inch off. This rotor is not too bad, but you can see the rust marks and the rust on there. So, get a little bit of noise here, put a dampener on. Just do a little bit of adjustment and set it off. Brake lathe adjusts itself and just wind out. As soon as it winds out, it'll leave a nice surface on the rotor. And you'll be good to go. All right, finished product here. We have a nice clean surfaced rotor. This is exactly what you're looking for. Almost looks brand new. If you have a rotor that has a lot of rust, a lot of pitting, you're going to want to use the off-the-car lathe. It's a little bit better at getting the big chunks out and a lot of the big rust. But this does a fantastic job all around on every rotor. We use it every single day, multiple times a day. It does a great job. So in closing, stop in for a brake inspection. We can do that for you anytime. Thank you.